I've solidified my plan for how I'm going to handle my study of chess openings going forward. And I think it might be a good plan for adult improvers. So I wanted to share my plan for anybody listening. And unsurprisingly, I'm going to keep my plan and my openings pretty simple. So I think one pitfall improving players, club players can fall into is spending too much time studying the openings and too much time trying to memorize openings. It's easy to fall in kind of like this merry-go-round where you keep trying to change your openings, find the perfect thing. You have a line you don't like, so you try to find something, and there's always this siren call trying to call you in and distract you from making real progress in chess, because then you're focusing on openings. I know there's a group of chess improvers called Chess Goals, and the founders of that site, one of them is a statistician, and they took data from hundreds of improving chess players, and the surveys would have information asking the players, they would look at their historical ratings, and they would look at what kind of activities they did as they were trying to improve in chess, or even if they weren't trying to improve in chess or whatever. But long story short, what they found is that opening studies is basically a distraction and can be kind of a hindrance towards improving as a player. What you need to do to improve is you need to play a lot and analyze your games, and I'm assuming like tactics and everything else, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But I think they came up with something like you should only spend like 5 or 10% of your time actually studying openings. And so I want to use that information as I came up with the plan for my own opening study going forward. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to study 3 free Chessable courses, and that will form the background of my opening studies. And the cool thing is in total between the 3 courses, there's exactly 100 lines. So that will be, it'll just be 100 lines that I actively study and try to drill on Chessable. And I will go through and show you what those courses are. And I'll show you what my process is going to be for learning the openings and how I'm going to handle it after I play games and whatnot. But the 3, unsurprisingly, I'm going to play 3 openings that focus on restraint structures. So that lead to like a Slav pawn structure or a Caro-Kann type pawn structure. And I suppose the best thing to do would be to cover what I'm going to play against e4, because that'll be kind of like, the most important thing you'll kind of have to prep. And John Bartholomew has this free course called I Am John Bartholomew's Scandinavian free version. And it's 57 lines, but he did a really good job curating the lines, and there's really good explanations in there. I think this is a pretty old course. He made it when he was when they were first starting Chessable. So I think it was kind of like he put a lot of love into it. And I guess I could kind of click into it quick, but you can just kind of see if we pull up a line, there's pretty good explanations. So that's what I'm going to use for e4, and I can show you a real quick kind of what's in the lines that he covers. He uses the queen to d8 version, variation against the Scandi, and so this would be a common position that you'd get if you play his repertoire. And when they go down the main line, he plays knight to f6. And against knight to f3, he plays bishop to g4. And his idea is as soon as white plays h3, he just exchanges on f3, plays c6 to blunt, that queen. And then you get this restraint structure set up. And so that will be like the recurring theme in all 3 of these opening repertoires. Now, one cool thing, and I've had really good results with this actually, if I just want to show you one line because it's kind of cool. If we get into the situation where they play an early bishop to g4, he recommends black play a6. And the idea is that you can hit this bishop with the b pawn, And when they go back, you play c5, and it's this temporary pawn sacrifice. You're going to get that pawn back. But these score, well, you can see they score quite a bit better for black than for white. I've had really good luck with it. And I kind of get excited if I ever see a real quick bishop to c4. So that is basically the idea for his repertoire. Is you play this queen to d8 Scandinavian. You usually get these solid restraint structure setups. So for the other black opening, against pawn to d4 or any other move on move 1, there's this course by Grandmaster Alex Kolovich, and it's called the short and sweet Chebanenko. And then he also has a lifetime repertoire, a larger course, a paid version. I'll talk about that later, but it's only 20 lines, and he has like an hour-long video, and that would be like a great starting point. But that's all I'm going to start with. I'm going to learn that. You can see I haven't spent time studying these longer courses. But the idea of this course, and he does a great job explaining stuff. Actually, you can kind of pull up a line, but you can kind of see that he has a lot of good explanation. So I think the best thing to do would be to go through these courses first, and then I'll tell you how I'm going to approach it. But just to give you a look at what kind of positions you get out of his course, he plays this Chebanenko Slav, and what that is like, okay, this is like the main kind of typical starting position of the Slav. And the Chebanenko, or you may have heard it called the chameleon, is when you play a6. And the idea is you're threatening this c4 pawn, because let's say white just plays something that they might play in a normal Slav that are just kind of on autopilot. Well, then you can actually take the c pawn, play b5, and just hold on to the sucker. So I like that. I've had people fall into that. Now, the more typical thing that will happen after you play a6, they'll play, if they're aware of that, they'll play e3 to add protection to that pawn. And then we play bishop to f5. And Kolovich refers to this Chebanenko Slav as the purest Slav, because it's basically by playing this a6, you all but guarantee that you'll be able to get your light squared bishop outside of this pawn chain. So let's just say, let's just make a couple moves, but you can see you're going to get this pawn chain again, this restraint structure pawn chain. So this will be, go into a Slav pawn structure. So just like the queen to d8 Scandi. Now, for white, we're going to get that pawn structure a lot too, just on the other side. And so there's a free, on Chessable, there's a free London course. And let me get to it here. Let's see. Short and sweet, the London system. And that one, I believe that is by John Bartholomew and Daniel Barish. But if we just pull up a random thing, you can kind of see there's a lot of explanation of ideas, and it's only like 20 moves long. So the cool thing is this one is 20 moves. Well, actually, I think it's like 23 moves. The Chebanenko is 20, and the Karl Khan, or the Scandi one was 57. So 100 moves total, but there's good explanations in these. And so I think that seems like a reasonable amount to actually kind of go through and just learn through the Chessables, learn function, and maybe drill, not a lot, but just a little bit. But that one, I'll show you kind of the lines that come about in that. So against d5, he uses the bishop to f4 move order. And I do have a couple of videos explaining the difference between playing bishop to f4 on move 2 and playing knight to f3 on move 2. So I'll put a link to it up there, a card that you can click on if you wanted to go through that. But he chooses the bishop to f4 move order. And I'll just kind of show you, if you go down kind of a main line here, he responds to bishop to d6, which is kind of like the most testing way for black to play if they go down this queen's gambit decline move order setup. Bishop to d3, and then you can see we get kind of like our typical triangle formation there once again. But if instead of castling, if they take our bishop, the idea is we can, it opens up our rook, and we could move the bishop out here and have pressure converge on h7. So that's kind of like a real condensed version, but let you see the kind of the general ideas of the lines that they kind of pick in that course. But the cool thing is there's some good like strategical overlap and in these courses. And so that's all I'm going to do is I'm going to, for as far as like trying to memorize anything or learn it, I'm just going to go through those free courses. Now I have the paid version of each of these courses. So like I said, the Chebanenko, there's this lifetime Chebanenko Slav. There's this one that's 149 lines, but it's the longer version of this London system. It's called the London System Essential Theory. And then there's the non-free version of this Scandinavian course. And I do own all of them. You can see I haven't spent any time. Like I went through the lines on the Scandinavian and it's really good, but I haven't spent any time learning the longer ones. So I'll tell you what I'm going to use those for and what my approach is going to be to learn these openings. So what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to, after I go through each of these courses and just learn it initially on the short, 100 lines total for all three of them, I'm going to play longer time control games, at least 15-10. And then when I get done with the game, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the courses and, first, of course, I'll analyze the game on my own without using an engine, come to my own conclusions. But then I'm going to pull up, go into Chessable, and let's say we just played a queen to d8 Scandi, and we got that cool variation where they played bishop to c4, and we played a6. I would go into the course here, and I'm doing this on the free one, not the full one, because I don't want to get in trouble for copyright infringement or I don't know how that works, but whatever. But you can go into the course and you can hit this browse repertoire tree, and it'll bring up a little thing like this, and we can use that to find the position within the course that came up while we were playing it. Now I realize in the short courses you can probably just scroll through and find it. If you do like the longer courses, like the lifetime Chebanenko, it might be easier to look it up on here. But let's just look at that variation. So let's pretend they did this early bishop to c4, and let's say we forgot the a6 or something. We wanted to look it up, and we just wanted to see what his explanation was of the plans and get a feel for it like that. Well, you can pull that up and then hit this Find in Courses button, and it'll show you all the courses on Chessable that that line appears in, and so you can see like it's in his free course. So we'll click on that, and then it takes you and just only shows the lines that have that exact pawn or that exact variation on it. So we could go in there, click in it, and say, oh, okay, let's, I should have played a6, and he has a really good explanation of why. So that's basically how I'm going to go about learning it. And then I'm going to add one additional thing. So I'm going to play a game. I'm going to analyze it myself, look it up in here, just to, pull it up in I'll probably use the full length courses, but you could certainly use the free ones. Look for the explanation, the suggested line and the ideas behind it. And then I'm going to go one step further, and I'll probably go into, let me pull up like an opening explorer here. I'll probably go into the Lichess database, and I'll put it on like stronger players. And then I'll look for a game where a stronger player played that opening. So we were looking at this variation here. And I'll go down and I'll look and I'll say, okay, well, here's a 2561 player that played it and won with it. look through it, not like analyze it in detail or anything, but just be like, okay, what ideas did he use? Oh, look, it looks like he's hanging the c pawn here, but he actually isn't. He knows that he's going to get it back. And then I would go through it and then just kind of look for ideas that that strong player used. So actually, I should show you one more. It looks like this guy's a FIDE master, so he might be a good player, to look at in these lines. But one other resource that is like a tremendous resource for this Queen to D8 Scandinavian is this book by Daniel Lowinger, and it's like $12 on Kindle, and it's called Queen to D8 Scandinavian, Simple and Strong. And the cool thing about this book, it doesn't cover all the sidelines in the Scandi. It only covers positions where this shows up on the board, where they play this main line and black plays queen to d8. But it has an index in the back, with like a variation branch. And he has like really good annotations of games played, and there's a lot of them. And so that's what I'm going to use instead of like going into the database for this initially. I'm going to look into find the closest variation in his book and go through that. And then when I, exhaust those, then I'll start looking for games elsewhere, like here, Chesstempo or chess.com, or just whatever databases you have available. If you got any of like the chess base or whatever, well, great. But that's how I'm going to do it. And then there's two additional things I'm going to do. I'm going to spend some time studying the pawn structures. So the Slav pawn structure and the Carlsbad pawn structure, those two complexes arise over and over in these openings. So I think I've already done one video on the Karo Khan pawn structure, but I plan on doing more videos on strategy within these pawn structures. And then the other thing I'm going to do is Chessable has some courses and about tactics that arise out of specific openings. So I know there's one. I have them actually, but I'll put links to these in the show notes as well. I'm not like paid to endorse Chessable or anything, by the way, but it's called Thematic Tactics. The London system is one, and then there's also ones with thematic tactics on the Slav and the Scandinavian. And my thought is like, you should be spending time studying tactics anyway. And so I want to spend at least half that time for the next few months or however long it takes to go through the tactics in these courses that, specifically arise from these openings that I'm going to be playing. And then you get kind of like a Jedi mind force feel or something, when a tactic arises, you probably spot it easier. So that's kind of my thoughts. As far as how I'm going to organize any of this stuff on the YouTube channel, it's the YouTube channel is mostly just kind of like documenting my process and using it as a way to kind of put my ideas out there and learn as I go. But what I've done and what I plan on doing is I have a lead chess study that's open to the public, and basically I have one started for the Scandinavian, but I'll start ones for the London system and the Slav as I play those now exclusively. But you can see this study. What I've done is I've put links to my videos that go specifically to games that I analyzed in those variations. So if you just kind of click down here, say like, all right, so see here, I have like a link to a YouTube video. It says game number 3. So this would be Scandinavian Defense game analysis number 3 would be like the name of the video on the YouTube channel, but it would have a link that would take you straight there. And that way, if you had a video, or if you just played a game and wanted to see like what the players did against me, or what I kind of came up with against it or whatever, and kind of compare notes, you could just click on that and it'll take you directly to that video. So go to the beginning, but you can see it. Today I'm going to analyze it. I'll turn that off, but you can see it it's a queen to d8 Scandi, and if we played through it, it would get to this position on the board that I linked to it from right here. So anyway, that's my plan going forward. I think it could be helpful approach especially for adult improvers, where you have limited time and you don't want to spend all kinds of time memorizing, just repetitive clicking, trying to memorize all these different moves. And there's a lot of thematic overlap in structure, between these openings. And also, it's good you can just get free ones to start with. I guess I should mention, like, I'll put links to the free version and the pay version of each one of these. But I believe that, like, this full Scandinavian course is around $20 full price, as well as the London one, and the Chebanenko one is about $50. Now, Chessable usually has sales quite often around like holidays or when there's big chess events. So I would assume they probably have a good sale maybe during the candidates this summer, 4th of July or something like that. But the Chebanenko one, well, I can go in there. I think it's like $50, but you'd be able to get it cheaper on sale, obviously. Yeah, it looks like it's $50, but this guy does an awesome job explaining things. Like, what I would recommend is getting it short and sweet, watching his video, see if you like his style. But the cool thing about this Chebanenko course is that he does a great job laying out ideas. There's like 4 common ideas, and even if you don't have it memorized, you can try to figure out which one of those kind of ideas to use, and there's a good chance you might figure out what the actual theory line is anyway. That's what I really like about this Chebanenko. So I look forward to moving forward, kind of solidifying my approach to the openings, and just learning these slowly as I go forward. The key is, I think, not to put pressure on yourself. It's not like a test to memorize all these things. As adult improvers, it takes time to improve. It's a gradual process, and just enjoy it. Look at the losses as like just an opportunity to learn something new. Like, if you messed up the opening, well, that's fine. You just look it up afterwards, and eventually all these themes will recur, and it'll kind of click, and we'll get it right most of the time. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Have a good one. Take care.